Starting off this countdown, we have the spies. Tons of people are afraid that the government is spying on them. It's thought that they can tap into our phones and watch us and listen to our calls, even though I don't know why they would want to. Like, what are they gonna see me scrolling through like Instagram all day? It's not a pretty sight. Now, we can't really prove that they do, but recently a post on Reddit revealed that they are tracking us. So I don't know if this is a thing outside of Canada, but it is in Canada. So Apple and Android phones now have a COVID-19 sensor on them. Basically, this allows the government to track your every move. A couple of weeks ago, a lot of cell phone users were having phone disruptions, and that's apparently when the tracker was put on the phones. In secret. But it's not on all phones. Once you update your phone, then it's automatically turned on. Don't believe me? Well, the post says that for iPhone users, go to Settings, Privacy, Health, and then you'll see it, but it's not yet functional. For Android users, go to Settings, then Google Settings, and it should be there. This is said to be able to notify you if you've been near someone that has the virus. But it's also a way for the government to track your every move. Seriously, why would they have this feature and then just like not tell us about it? Why is everything done in secrecy? They're up to something. Moving on at number 9, we have Nixon's health. Now, this isn't really classified information, but I thought it was quite interesting, and it was brought to my attention by Kelly, Roy on Reddit. So the files of Richard Nixon's longtime physician, Dr. Walter Tkach, probably said that last name wrong, are on lockdown. The doctor's son has the files and is planning to eventually release them to the Nixon library, but when he does, they will not be open for 75 years. Not only that, but taped conversations between Nixon and his doctor are also on lockdown, and they will not be released. Now, why is this significant? Well, some people believe that Nixon was incapacitated towards the end of his presidency. If so, then under the 25th Amendment, he should have had his authority suspended. So there's a reason why the government has been keeping these files classified. It's going to apparently expose a lot. In our 8th spot, we have the trade documents. Back in 2019, the Reddit account OsterMaxNN leaked a bunch of UK government trade documents. The documents discussed future trade deals between the US and the UK. They also revealed plans by the Conservative Party to privatize National Health Service. After investigation, it turns out that the Reddit user that leaked the documents was part of a larger coordinated effort from Russia. Reddit said, and I quote, "We investigated this account and the accounts connected to it. And today we believe this was part of a campaign that has been reported as originating from Russia." In our 7th spot, we have Area 51. Everyone wants to know what really goes on in Area 51. Is it really where they're keeping aliens? I need to know. But sadly, we don't truly know. But we do have some insider information on what it's like in Area 51. Yeah, you heard me. 8 years ago, a Reddit user by the name of Kiver16 revealed that his mother's boyfriend is Stephen Gorvan, aka one of the people who was at Area 51 testing the Mars rover. He uploaded a picture of Stephen holding a sign saying, "Hi Reddit, ask me anything," as proof that it actually was him and he wasn't just gonna make it up. So people quickly jumped to it, asking him tons of questions on the mysterious base. During one part of the Q&A, Stephen revealed that when he first arrived at the base, he saw a strange aircraft flying low across the desert floor. He believed that it was a test flight for a secret aircraft. He said it moved at subsonic speed and didn't make a lot of noise. He also revealed that Area 51 is much bigger than it looks, with tons of different sectors and buildings. Now sadly, he didn't see any aliens. But he did reveal that it seemed like we are close to hoverboard technology, like the ones you see in Back to the Future. So that's pretty cool. Moving on to number 6, we have D.B. Cooper. One of the most famous and mysterious cases of all times. And I might have found out what happened to him. But first, let me give a rundown on this dude for the people who have no clue what I'm talking about. Dan Cooper, or D.B. Cooper, is a man who was responsible for a plane hijacking in 1971. No one knows who he is or where he is now. So in 1971, Cooper boarded the plane, and once in the air, he handed the flight attendant a note saying that he had a bomb in his suitcase. He demanded $200,000 and a parachute, but he didn't want any hostages. So they landed in Seattle, he got his request, and then he told the pilot to fly to Mexico City. However, along the way, he took the money and his parachute and jumped out of the plane. The police looked for Cooper until 2016, and this case is known as one of the longest active searches in history. Now, 2 years ago, a former FBI special agent joined Reddit and did a AMA, Ask Me Anything. To prove it was really him, he held a piece of paper like the other dude, saying his name and his Reddit, blah blah blah. The man is Mark Ruskin, who worked 20 years in undercover operations. One of the questions that someone asked him was about DB Cooper, and what the FBI thought happened to him and what he thought happened to him. Ready for this? Both the FBI and Mark believe that DB Cooper did not survive the parachute down. I know, so anticlimactic, but apparently they have evidence to suggest he didn't make it. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the cat bomb. So this secret isn't really a secret anymore. I guess most of these aren't secrets anymore, but I didn't know this was a thing until I read about it on Reddit, meaning that I bet some of you haven't heard about it either. So during World War II, the government thought it would be a good idea to strap a cat to a bomb. They thought that by doing so, it would assure the bombs would reach their target. Cats hate water, so they thought if you drop a cat strapped to a bomb over water, the cat would avoid the water and then would just land on the battleship's deck. But obviously, for many reasons, that did not work out. Cats would end up passing out midair before sinking without a trace. They also tried something similar with bats, which again, didn't really work. Moving on to number 4, we have the bomb shelter. This is going to come to a shock to anyone who lives outside of the US. Posted on Reddit by the user Deadpool8988, they said that at one point, the US government was telling people to build a bomb shelter in their backyards. They instructed people to dig a big enough hole in their backyard and then cover it with a door. They were told to hide out there in case of a nuclear attack. But turns out that the real reason why they were telling families to do this was so that if there was a nuclear attack, the government wouldn't have to bury as many bodies. So families were literally digging their own graves. That is extremely disturbing. In our 3rd spot, we have the blood supply. Okay, this one is going to be pretty crazy. So back in 1984, the Red Cross Society in Canada was importing blood products from the US. This was at the time of the AIDS crisis, and America was hit much harder with it. There was fear that the disease was going to be transmitted through this blood. But the Red Cross ignored it, and according to this Reddit user who was a lab worker for the American Red Cross, apparently they were aware of this and so was the US government. But they didn't warn Canadians. Instead, they told them they had nothing to worry about and that they tested the blood before sending it. The guy was forced to keep his mouth shut and lie. As a result, tons of hemophiliacs who had blood transfusions later died of AIDS. What's freaky is that the Reddit user that shared this information later deleted his account. I just hope that he's safe and that the government didn't come for him for exposing them. In our 2nd spot, we have the leaked emails. In March 2016, the personal Gmail account of John Podesta, a former White House chief of staff and chair of Hillary Clinton's 2016 US presidential campaign, was hacked, and his emails revealed some very disturbing things. So the emails were posted to Reddit along with other websites, and then users started to decipher them. They believe that Hillary and other people of power are part of a human and a sex ring. In the emails, they use code words like pizza, cheese pizza, and hot dogs. Kinda weird. And it would say things like, and I quote, "I'm dreaming about your hot dog stand in Hawaii." Clearly, there's a hidden message to that. I can't dive into too much detail about it for obvious reasons, but you should do some research of your own. It's crazy. What makes this more suspicious is that the government removed all posts about this from Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media sites. Any posts about the emails and the theories will be removed. And in our number 1 spot, we have the blue van. Okay, this one thoroughly creeps me out. Like, it just proves that the government is up to no good. So this story was posted on Reddit by a former homicide detective. One time he was called to a scene where the victim had called 911 saying that someone was trying to kill him. He told police that he was hiding in his panic room. When they arrived at his house, there were no signs of forced entry, and all the doors remained locked from the inside. Inside the house, there was no damage, it was just super clean, no signs of violence or anything. Due to this, the detective believed that the attacker was someone that the man knew and invited inside. When they eventually got to the panic room, they found the man sitting on the floor. His face had a terrified expression plastered on it. Both of his arms were missing, not cut off. They looked as if they had been ripped off. His missing limbs were never found. Now, here's where it gets spooky. As soon as they reported their findings, the police captain told the team to give all of the evidence, along with the victim's body, to the individuals in a blue van that had arrived on the scene. The blue van belonged to the government. After they did this, the case was buried. They never heard any more information on it. Like, what? Seems like some government creature got released and killed this guy or something like that, and then they're trying to cover it up.
Coming in at number 10, we have The Button. A subreddit called The Button started a thread that was literally just a countdown timer next to a button. It was up at 60 minutes, and if you press the button, it would move the counter down 1 second. You can only press the button once, and after a certain amount of time, it would reset. People would come in and press the button like crazy, but it has never reached 0. One time it made it to 0, but nothing happened, and apparently that was a glitch. The big question is, what happens when it reaches 0? That is why it is on this list. This button is just one massive anxiety attack. How serious of an event will happen when this button reaches 0? Maybe the glitch is what happened right before 2020 kicked off, and that's why everything has gone to hell. Whatever is going to happen, I don't need to be thinking about it ever again. Coming in at number 9, we have what is the creepiest thing? Here's a Reddit thread that you can read through for hours if you want to just have endless stories that are completely horrifying. The Reddit thread has been archived because the person who asked the question deleted their account, but the Redditor asked this question: what is the creepiest thing that you or someone you know has ever experienced? It says serious in brackets at the beginning, and oh boy, do people go hard in this thread. Some of the stories are about meeting murderers, near misses with sex offenders, and there's some horrible stories that will make your skin crawl. Literally, some of the stuff on here is way too gruesome for me to get into, but it is a great late night read with the lights off if you really want to give yourself a scare. There really isn't a way to fact check any of these stories, but if we're talking about Reddit stories, it is more about how they made you feel and not whether or not they're actually real. That rhymed. That's weird. Coming in at number 8, we have Are the Donalds threads. Let's bring in one of the things that breeds the most toxicity on the internet. It doesn't matter if you're a Trump supporter or if you hate his guts and want to see him dragged into the streets like Gaddafi. Whenever this dude is brought up on the internet, it seems to spark vicious words of hostility. There are several threads on this subreddit that have caused a ton of hatred. One of the strangest ones is one that was started ranting and raving about how everyone in the community hates Ariana Grande. I don't know why this community of Donald Trump supporters hates a pop star so much, but apparently that's a big thing to them. If you want to see any of these threads just to snoop around, well, good luck. You're gonna need to find some other way of peeking inside other than going right to the source, because the group has been on lockdown and the only way you can get inside is by being invited in. I really would like the key to this clan because I just want to know what's going on in their minds. Coming in at number 7 is kids say the creepiest thing. There always is going to be something strange coming out of a kid's mouth. Sometimes it's just gibberish and a massive waste of time, but every now and again they will hit you with something that will make your skin crawl because of how terrifying it was. The Reddit thread, which is the creepiest thing you've heard a child say, covers this very well. There's stories about kids talking about ghosts, and one that really freaked me out was when a family was sitting down playing cards and their 3-year-old's facial expression just changes out of nowhere. Then he walks into the garage and starts crying in the corner. The parents are trying to figure out what's wrong, and their son just keeps saying, "He says I'm his." Well, that's enough to give you nightmares for the rest of your life. Coming in at number 6, we have what is a potato? Okay, I want to start off by saying this is one of my most favorite Reddit threads of all time. I love this story and it kills me every time I read it. The only reason why it's on this list of threads that should be banned is because I don't think anything will ever top this. It's so funny that I almost think it needs to be removed from the internet so other things can feel that they can compete with this. It just touches my dumb sense of humor so perfectly. So the thread is started by a guy who's recounting a story of when he goes to his girlfriend's house for dinner for the first time. He thought he would do a gag where he would sit down at the dinner table and he would pretend not to know what a potato potato was. He commits to the bit for so long that eventually he gets kicked out of the house, and it's absolutely amazing. You have to read this thread. Alright, coming in at number 5, we have truckers of Reddit. Okay, now back to threads that need to be banned because they are insane. A question was asked to the Reddit world, and that question was, truckers of Reddit, what is the craziest, scariest, or most bizarre thing you have experienced on the road or at a truck stop? And holy moly, there's a ton of terrifying stories coming out of this one. You want ghost stories? Oh, truckers got that. You want stories about people diving in front of their trucks? You better believe that this thread has got that. You want stories about crazy drifters, bodies found in truck stops, insane levels of food poisoning from truck stop food? This thread has got all of that. But if you don't want that kind of stuff, you probably think this thread should be banned. Coming in at number 4, we have the ocean blue. The Redditor Icefalls wants to know what's going on under the ocean, and there are a few ways you can go about this. You could go in and look for yourself, but that would probably take a lot of time and money. You could watch a bunch of documentaries about it, but all that info is coming from a middleman who gets to cut out a lot of the good stuff. Instead, our Redditor just went and asked, Dear deep sea fishers of Reddit, what is the strangest thing you've seen or heard on the open ocean? And if you're afraid of open water, let me tell you, this thread should be avoided. The thread starts off with some people talking about alien encounters out on the ocean, and a few different fishermen chime in to share their stories. Then it goes in to talk about sharks that have bitten straight through fish when they're getting brought to the surface, and only 3 comments in, you have someone talking about when their boat was attacked by a Japanese submarine. They shot torpedoes at them. It's a thread that really makes you want to stay on land. Coming in at number 3, we have ghost stories. It should be no surprise that we are going to throw something on this list that has to do with ghost stories. Redditor Croca4Loca asked the wonderful world of Reddit, what's the most unexplained supernatural or paranormal event you have ever witnessed? Most of the stories on this list are creepy enough to keep you up all night. If you ever question whether or not demons and ghosts are real, this thread will have you leaning towards the answer of they are 100% real and they want to kill us all. Coming at number 2, we have history but not history. So on a thread about the creepiest thing to ever happen in history, someone left a story that doesn't really have anything to do with history, but it did have a lot to do with making me afraid to live alone. It's a story about a girl who was living alone. She was walking out of her room and she went to put on her shoes before she left. She bent over to tie her shoes and then she saw someone underneath her bed. She pretends like she didn't see him and then she calmly walks into the bathroom, turns on the shower, and then she climbs out the window and calls the police. The police come in and then arrest the guy, but that story alone is enough to get this thread banned. I don't want anyone giving weirdos ideas of how to sneak into a house and scare people like this. And coming out of the number 1 spot, we have doctor stories. When it comes to creepy things happening, anything to do with medicine is one that always freaks me out the most. Just the idea of a doctor forgetting something in a person's body, or giving someone the wrong drug, or having to deal with brutal accidents, or just death in general, seems like way too much for a person to bear, and they do it almost every day. I don't know how, but I do respect the hell out of them, even though they kinda creep me out. But this thread did not help quell my fears at all. The thread, Doctors of Reddit, what's the creepiest thing you've encountered while on the job, had stories of doctors dealing with intense overdoses to having people who they thought were dead come back to life. One of the craziest things I read on this thread was about a psychiatrist who had to treat someone who had tried to saw both their arms off with a table saw. They were successful, but doctors managed to reattach their arms. That is terrifying. Coming in at number 10, we have The Brother Is Gone. A Reddit user wrote in about how him and his brother used to always play in the forest behind their house when they were growing up. They would spend hours out there and it always was so much fun. His parents always warned them that they should never go out there at night. There wasn't anything supernatural with this thing, but it was a forest filled with predators at night, and there was a chance that they could get eaten by a cougar or something. Well, one night his brother thought that he should challenge his parents by going into the woods at night, but in the morning he was still gone. Once the whole family realized what happened to him, they sent out a massive search party for him. They looked everywhere, but the only thing they could find was his shoes. Why did he take off his shoes? To this day, he still has no idea what happened to his brother. Did someone take him? Was it an animal? Or was it something much more terrifying? Coming in at number 9, we have Goodbye Mom. Here's another story, this time a mother who ran away. A family of 4 came home to find that their mom was missing. They had no idea what happened to her. At first they thought maybe she had gone out with some friends, but after they couldn't find her anywhere and she wasn't answering her phone at all, they decided that it was time to call the police. The police searched the house and it was clear that she ran away. Lots of her clothes were missing. She had taken money out of the family safe and she had taken all of her IDs. Her car car was also missing. 2 weeks later, her car was found abandoned on the side of the road, but she was still nowhere to be found. The family put up posters trying to find their mom, but eventually they had to accept the fact that she was gone forever. Coming in at number 8, we have Moving In. This is such a freaky story. You really need to check out the history of a place before you move into it, because you could be walking face first into a horror show. A Reddit user talked about moving into a new place and how they were so excited. After moving into this apartment, they would notice at night they would always hear a strange scraping noise. No matter how much they searched, they could never find the origin of this noise. After getting settled in for a few weeks, they started to get to know their neighbors. One of our Reddit user's neighbors told her that there were 2 families who used to live in this apartment. Apparently, 2 families back to back have gone missing from this place. No one has been able to figure out what happened to them either, but I bet you the rent was so low at that apartment. Coming in at number 7, we have The Runaways. Reddit user Guy in Florida wrote on Reddit about a story of a mother who was dating someone new. Her new boyfriend was getting to know the family, and I guess he was getting a little too close because one day he and her daughter ran off together. They took the family van and disappeared. The mother was devastated but couldn't understand why they would do this to her. She hired a private investigator to try and find them, but all the leads that came back seemed to be kinda phony. Then a few years later, the city drained the canal close to the mother's home, and they found the van in the canal with the daughter and the boyfriend both inside. So maybe they didn't intend to run away together, but the both of them just died when they drove off the road into the canal. Coming at number 6, we have Boat Accident. A man was on vacation with his wife, and partway through the trip he booked a boat for the 2 of them to head out on a fishing trip. The day before the trip, the man's wife got food poisoning, so she could not go, but she insisted that he head out and enjoy himself. Well, a storm rolled in and he never made it back from the trip. She contacted the police, but all that was found was a broken shell of the boat. She was devastated and eventually had to return home without her husband. Then a few weeks later, she received a call from the local authorities who had seen him. They didn't get an opportunity to bring him in, but he was spotted walking around the downtown core. She flew back out to find him, and after following a trail of clues, the search ended up at a dead end. Coming in at number 5, we have Daddy Didn't Come Home. Someone's dad going out for a pack of smokes and then never coming home is a story as old as time, but not every dad who goes missing ran away from his family because he's a deadbeat dad. Sometimes you have a good old-fashioned mystery on your hands. A Redditor wrote in about a story he heard when he was younger, about a man with a wife and 2 kids who went to work one morning. He called his wife when his shift ended. He was on his way home and he never made it back. All the regular legal events went through, but he couldn't be found. One of the strangest parts about this case was there was footage of this man leaving work in his truck, and his truck was seen on a security camera not even a mile from his home. But nothing could be found to help that family find their dad. His vehicle, any records of him, everything was gone forever. Coming in at number 4, we have The Seance. A girl at a Catholic school thought it would be a funny idea to mess around with some witchcraft in the basement of her school. I guess if you're going to a school that is protected by God, it should be no surprise that witchcraft would be one of the ways you want to rebel. Well, a group of girls pulled this off, and afterwards one of the girls seemed to be acting strange. No one really paid attention until she started to have outbursts in class, and her parents say that she started waking up in the middle of the night screaming. This all climaxed when the girl went missing in the middle of the night. Everyone in town went out searching for this girl, but she was never found. Maybe messing around with dark magic attracted something or someone that stole her away. Coming in number 3, we have Mayumi Arashi. Her story blew up all over the internet a little while ago, and it was all over Reddit. The story of Mayumi Arashi, a young Japanese girl who went missing after she left home to meet up with a friend to study. Police got involved, but they couldn't find her. Mayumi's sister Yoko spoke with her friend, but she stated that Mayumi never planned to study with her that night. There was a male suspect who police thought could have been the one to kidnap Mayumi, but they could never link him back to the case. Coming in number 2, we have Lars Middetank. This is a wild story of someone who was out for what seems to be a normal vacation, but then things start to get insane. It was Lars and his friends who went on a trip to Bulgaria, and the group of them were having a pretty good time until things started to get out of hand. They got into a fight with some of the locals, and Lars got hit in the head pretty hard. His eardrum got ruptured, but the fight was broken up before things got any worse. The thing that sucks about this is that with his ruptured eardrum, he was unable to fly, and he and his friends were supposed to fly back in 2 days. He tells his friends that they should leave without him, and they do, but while Lars was alone, he starts to become extremely paranoid. He thinks people are following him, and he calls his mom to book him a flight back home and cancel all of his credit cards. The next day he goes to the airport, and while waiting to get on the plane, he is approached by airport security who wants to speak with him. He then runs out of the airport, jumps a fence, and runs into some bushes, disappearing forever. Coming in at number 1, we have Dorothy Jane Scott. Bugs Doing Things wrote on Reddit about the case of Dorothy Jane Scott. This is a very frightening missing persons case. Dorothy started getting calls from an unknown person. This person was telling her that they were going to find her and kill her, and they had been stalking her for quite some time, and they knew exactly where they were going to nab her from. Then one day when Dorothy was walking to her car in the parking lot of a hospital, she was grabbed and she was never seen again. Police searched for her, but there was no luck. What makes this even worse is that the killer would call Dorothy's family for years after this happened to taunt them and try to drive them insane with the death of their daughter. Coming in at number 10, we have the bomb shelter. So you know how the threat of a nuclear attack has always been looming over our heads for a long time? Well, it has been even more so in America. For one, they have way more nukes, and they have enemies that have way more nukes. So knowing what to do in a nuclear attack is very useful information. Well, Redditor Deadpool8988 wrote on Reddit about how the American government used to tell people that they should dig an 8-foot by 4-foot by 10-foot hole in their backyard just in case a bomb comes through. That way you can jump into the hole and hide, and you'll be protected from the nuclear attack. Well, it turns out that the reason that the government was so keen on people digging these grave-like holes was because they were actually graves. If everyone jumps into a hole right before the bomb hit, then there would be less bodies to clean up in the aftermath. The government knew that the hole in the ground wouldn't protect the people, but it would get them situated for their inevitable demise much faster.
Coming in at number 9 is the pill. This one is sus as hell and was shared by Redditor Miriam, whose friends served in Desert Storm. They shared that every morning during muster, the troops were all given a pill to take and were told it would protect them from any and all toxins that the Iranians had released into the air. Might want to check the science on that claim, but moving on. The friend thought the whole thing was doubtful, so he never swallowed the pills, and neither did some of the others. Fast forward a few years later, and he finds out that the people who took the pills now all have various kinds of cancer and other really serious medical issues. The ones that chose not to take the pill are completely fine, so what the hell are in those pills, and why were they being used as guinea pigs? What it be? What it do?
Coming in at number 8, we have the Snowden files. Now, of course, these were leaked on a much more secure website than Reddit. Snowden went to the press to get out all the classified info, but the thing is, I've read all about this on Reddit. It was going gangbusters on there, and you can still go back and check it out. For those of you who don't know, Edward Snowden was working with American intelligence and leaked a ton of info about how the NSA was looking at all your emails, sorting all your phone calls, and they could access all of that info at any time. And frankly, they probably still are. I mean, just talk about something around your phone, like this. Look at this. I need to buy ninja equipment for a ninja school. I need ninja stuff because being a ninja is cool. I want to be a ninja. Discount ninja clothes. I'm gonna get ninja ads now.
Filling at number 7 slot are the Montebello Islands. So during the 1950s, the British government ran 3 nuclear bomb tests at the Montebello Islands, located near the coast of Western Australia. Operation Hurricane occurred on October 3rd, 1952, where 25 kilotons of plutonium were dropped. Then came Operation Mosaic, taking place in the middle of 1956, where 15 kilotons were dropped on Trimio Island and 60 kilotons were dropped on Alpha Island. But this really isn't a big deal. Nuclear bomb tests were done so routinely back then, and the islands were uninhabited, so no one was really getting hurt except of course the Aboriginal people that lived there. Their tribes were right on the mainland next to the islands, and they're extra vulnerable to the radioactive fallout, but that wasn't even taken into consideration by the Safety Committee or the Atomic Weapons Research Establishment. There was already huge radioactive fallout all over the mainland. There was even radioactive rain on the coast of Queensland. I just find it funny how the dose levels were ignored when it came to the Aboriginals. Like, oh, we don't care. If they're not white settlers, we just don't care.
At number 6 we have the death of the Challenger pilots. Here's some gruesome details about the Challenger pilots that Cyrax2112 shared on Reddit. He said when the spacecraft exploded, the people on board didn't die right away, even though the news flying around the world for a long time was as soon as it erupted into a ball of flames the pilots were killed. Well, that wasn't the case. Apparently most of the pilots survived the initial explosion and were flying around in the worst terror of their lives as they came crashing down to the planet. On top of this, NASA knew this right from the beginning, but they kept this information a secret. They knew that if they made the crash seem more gruesome than it already was, that it would ruin the space program. And you know what? They were probably right. I mean, the crash was already the worst PR they could have received, and if you pack on news about people suffering before they died, no one would ever want to go to space again.
Coming in at number 5 is Devil Eyes. So back in 2005/2006, the CIA was working on a project dubbed Devil Eyes, and it concerned Osama bin Laden. Their plan was to create a bin Laden action figure and sell it throughout South Asia, but there was a catch. They wanted to make it so when the paint on the figure was heated, it would peel off, revealing this demon-like figure with green eyes, red skin, and black marks underneath. The point was to scare the younger Asian generation and turn public opinion against the real Osama. They're saying it like all the kids in South Asia were like, oh, we love bin Laden. We don't. At all. The project was done with a former Hasbro executive called Donald Levine, who has also been called the father of G.I. Joe toys. In 2014, the CIA admitted the program was real, but that they had cancelled it after only 3 prototypes. But according to Reddit and the Washington Post, and someone who was directly involved, yes, the program was discontinued, but hundreds of figures were still shipped to Karachi, Pakistan. My parents just moved there. Let me see if I can find one of these. I will let you guys know.
Coming in at number 4, we have sterilization. Redditor Ultra Meow wrote on Reddit about government documents that were found which highlighted the sterilization of Native American women without their consent. These were discovered in 1972. Apparently this was a common practice, as the American people were constantly trying to wipe out the Native American population, and to this day have done very little to repair the damage that has been done.
Filling at number 3 slot are the secret archives. So apparently there's this huge secret facility in Britain somewhere that contains all of the British Empire's secret archives. And the British Empire literally colonized and ruined half the world. Countries that are third world countries today were made that way since during colonization, the Empire literally stripped them of all their value and made them decades behind in terms of progress. Just imagine the horrible secrets this facility must hold. Now, apparently the British committed horrible human rights violations during the Mau Mau uprising in Kenya back in the 50s. The uprising was essentially the local Kenyan tribes versus the colonizers and British army. The secret documents in the facility reveal the extent of torture and death that occurred there, to the point any surviving Mau Mau could get compensation from the crown now if they wanted to. Millions were put in concentration camps, hundreds of thousands were physically and sexually abused, victims were refused medical aid, they were burning people's eardrums with lit cigarettes, like the whole thing was horrible. Sad fact, one of the victims was actually Obama's granddad.
And coming in at the number 2 spot, we have Operation Paperclip. Once again, not a secret that was originally leaked on Reddit, but you can find so much info about it on Reddit, and the first time I read about it was on Reddit, so I thought it would be a good fit. This was one of the wildest government secrets ever. What do you do with the enemy after you defeat them? Do you disband them? Do you kill everyone? Or do you try and take as much of them as possible to try and make your own country stronger? Well, the last option was basically Operation Paperclip. Turns out that after World War II, the Americans wanted to take what they could from the Nazis. Operation Paperclip was when the Americans took somewhere around 1,500 scientists that were working with the Nazis. They had a ton of intel on German weaponry and explosives, and they wanted that data for themselves. I mean, would it have been better to let all that knowledge stay in Germany, or was it better taking them for the benefit of the American people? I don't know, I guess that's a question of morality that'll be floating around for a very long time.
And finally, at number 1 is tracking. So this one's a bit iffy since it wasn't initially leaked on Reddit exclusively, but I found out about it from Reddit exclusively, so I'm gonna make it count, cause I wrote this video and I can do what I want. Okay, so don't worry, Che wrote his part, I'm not taking all the credit. Anyway, back in March of 2019, NBC7 managed to get their hands on a bunch of documents the US government had created. On it was a secret database of journalists, activists, and influencers who were advocating immigration. In some cases, the database put alerts on these people's passports, but what brought these people under the lens is the migrant caravan at the end of 2018. 5,000 immigrants from Central America entered the US, and as the migrant caravan reached San Diego, they were met by attorneys, journalists, and more. Any journalists that helped any of the migrants or covered the story became targets of intense searches and inspection by border officials. Sounds like my life every time I go to the airport and get randomly checked. Okay, so random. Some advocates even get detained for 13 hours, others would be pulled into secondary inspection 4 times. Agents collect information on these people, the data shows their face, their social media, their passport numbers, everything. Homeland Security even said, "We are a criminal investigation agency, we're not an intelligence agency, we can't create dossiers on people and they're creating dossiers. This is an abuse of the Border Search Authority." Wow, I actually agree with them. This is majorly screwed up.